Gentlemen, I know you're wondering why you've been called down to my office. Well, it's come to my attention that one of the two of you is an imposter. Oh, the excitement. Hello there, gamers. Today I have got a game device sent by TomTop. This is the Retro Arcade, and I am super excited because this is made by the same guys that made the RS-07, which is one of my current favorite devices. Woo, I am just giddy. I've been doing a whole lot of these little mini arcades, and I got high hopes for this. I hope they are well founded. All right, this is the front of the box. Select, joystick, volume up and down, start, game keys, USB port, AV out, earphone, power, DC, and TF card. I like the way that this is just basically a feature list. It's not like advertising, is it? Select start, press start plus select, quit or archive the game. Questionable English, but not horrible. Top of the box. Nice. Here's the back of the box. Included console, gamepad, AV cable, USB cable, and user manual. Here's what the gamepads look like. The bottom of the box is super attractive. That is really nice looking. It's probably the nicest part of the box. This is the right side of the box. It looks crusty. This is the left side of the box. I could have just done the right side of the box twice, but no, not for you. I actually turned it around. All right, so let's get this wrapper off it. Let's try some mood music.
You cannot unsee that. I can though. Deleting.
I'm willing to admit that that was a pretty screwed up segment. All right, let's open this thing up. Well, it's packed in foam. First thing we get is a little user manual, and it is in, look at that, it's in pirate format. It's in the form of a little mini poster. Hold up. Look at that beauty. Very nice. It says attention to security matters. That's kind of worrisome. All right, so first thing we got here is a mini USB cable. Not a micro, that's kind of unusual. Next, AV cable. Pretty long, looks like it's in excess of 5 feet. That is good. All right, let's pull this puppy out of here. Nice packaging. Got the D-pads, we'll pull those out in a minute. Set this guy back here. All right, let's look at the D-pads. All right, so the D-pad feels okay. It's a little bit springy. The buttons feel really nice. I mean, seriously, they do feel really nice. It's a very small controller. Hold on a second. Let's put this next to something. All right, so here's a Super Nintendo controller for comparison. And here's a controller for the NeoGeo Mini. So it's a really small controller. That said, it does feel well built and it feels nice in the hand. It's really not bad.
Oh, it is bad.
And here is the moment we've all been waiting for. The reveal. This is not bad looking. All right, I want to zoom in on the controllers a little bit because this is very similar to the NeoGeo device, except this has got 6 buttons across the face as opposed to the NeoGeo's 4. The joystick feels a little bit looser. I don't know how I feel about that yet. We'll see how it plays. The buttons, they feel pretty good. They're not as good as the one on the little controller that comes with it, but they're nothing I'm going to complain about. They're definitely better than average Famicom or Famiclone controllers. The start and select, let's bring those around. The start and select buttons are made of the same plastic as the buttons. I like this color. I got to choose which color, and I've seen the smoke ones before, but I really like the blue and white. In the back, we have two USB ports. I assume that's for the controllers. AV out. Here's a TF card slot, so you can put new games into it. And here, of course, is the power. Next to it is a power on and off button. It's kind of cheap, but not bad. It's reminiscent of the NeoGeo one, just not quite as high quality, but really not bad. Next, we have the volume control on the side. That's very welcome, of course. All right, mini arcade, cough up your secrets. What is behind this panel? Bugger. Wait, got it? Got it? What the heck? That's for a battery.
2 weeks later.
Alright folks, so here's a story on the battery. It's a couple weeks later and I had to order one. The TomTop version of this, actually it's not, they're all the same version of this, but TomTop does not sell the battery with it. No, they're not taking them out. The unit generally doesn't come with it. That's why they're sell a little bit cheaper than other places. But the battery number is 18650. It's really easy to get. It makes a big difference in this thing. Note that you should get the button top version of this. You want a button top battery. There's a flat top and a button top version. I cannot say the word button top enough. All right, enough with that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the control deck. There's 6 main buttons on the control deck. There's a start and a reset button. I just did those in reverse. A start and a reset button. This joystick works absolutely wonderfully in my opinion. I realize that there are some reviewers who didn't like it. I've heard that before on the NeoGeo, and I say it because it's pretty much identical to the NeoGeo controller and works every bit as well as it. I've had absolutely no problems with it. It always works well. The buttons work really well. You know, they don't feel like arcade buttons, obviously, but they do the job admirably. Now, this thing, however, I gotta say, I hate it. I absolutely hate this controller. One of the reasons is I had such high hopes for it. It feels great in the hand. It's made out of really nice plastic. The problem is that this D-pad has probably the worst case of drift that I've ever seen. I mean, I'm trying to think. There's probably another one that has had worse, but what I'm saying is I will go press in this direction and then go back and it will keep going in the opposite direction. That is just a serious problem, and it's not that I have a defective one because I've got 2 of these things. So what you end up doing is training yourself to press on the edges, and that does work. So you can play with this. You can play 2-player games with 2 players with it. It'll be okay, but it just, it could have been so great. You know, if they just would have put a little bit more support in the center to keep it from drifting really bad. And if you think I'm nitpicking, look at some of my other reviews. I am not hard on these D-pads. I give them a pass pretty much if they just basically work. So I'm telling you, this is not great. I might try some surgery on it. The other thing is I might look into seeing if I can get a substitution for this controller, use something else for it, because that would be amazing, because so many of the games are laid out for this versus this. Most of the games seem to have been designed to use this guy. It's not a big deal, but on the Super Nintendo it is, because the Super Nintendo, for whatever reason, it will not remap the controls. That's okay most games, but when you have a game that is emulating like a dual stick function. So that would be laid out like this on this pad. It's laid out all goofed up on this one, so I can't remap it this way on the SNES, which means, well, some of my favorite games don't work really well, like Total Carnage is, you know, pretty much unplayable with this, and Smash TV is pretty much unplayable. So I'm really sad about that, because generally the SNES emulation on here is pretty good. The plastics quality on this is probably better than most Famiclones or mini devices of this type. It's not quite to the NeoGeo level, but it's really good. Fit and finish is good. You can see the corners line up nice. I've taken this apart a couple times. I've been hacking it. We'll talk about that later, actually in a different video, but I have been hacking it and taking it apart a couple times, and it always goes back together really nice. Like I said, good lines, well put together. The plastics feel good. Definitely not a big cancer box. Here's a retro arcade right next to SNK's mini arcade, and as you can see, it's quite a bit wider, a little bit shorter, and quite a bit thicker than NeoGeo's offering. Some other notes: this uses USB-C for charging. This uses USB mini, not micro, for charging. No SD capability. SD capability here though. You'll also note for controllers, this uses USB-C, this uses regular USB or USB 2, not 100% sure about that part. HDMI out is on this one, and this one uses a standard AV out. Here's the retro arcade being held by my monkey butler Jeeves. Let's try playing a game. So here is UN Squadron playing on the retro arcade. First thing you're gonna notice is super nice bright screen. I really like the screen on this. However, there is a little bit of a negative on here, and that is, you'll notice it's a widescreen format. If I go into the menu, that Start and Select, you'll notice that there is no way to change the settings on this. Now, it chooses its own amount of stretch, and for most games, I found it looks pretty darn good. But if you are a purist on this kind of thing, it's something to note. Let's go back. Come on, back. And we'll continue. All right, now I'm gonna turn up the volume. The volume is super loud. Really. It gets very distorted in the high range. In fact, it's loud and it distorts pretty quickly. It's not terrible, but it's something to note. But that said, if you are if you are in a loud area, this thing will have absolutely no problems being heard. But the sound is not perfect. Definitely on some emulators it's better than others. I think the arcade emulators are mostly pretty good, with the exception of a couple games. But things like the Game Boy Advance, it's all hit and miss. All right, so I've shown you this. Let's go plug this thing into the big screen and take a look at several of the games. All right, here we are at the main menu of the retro game. At the top, of course, are a bunch of shortcuts to games. Unfortunately, you cannot alter them through the menu system. That's kind of sad. They really should add that feature, because it would go a long way towards making these things more user-friendly. The first section here down at the bottom that's kind of bouncing, I like that effect by the way, is the game section. We'll look at that in a little bit. There is an MP3 player. Due to the sound quality, I really don't think that you'd actually use it as an MP3 player, but you do have the option. There is a directory that you can drop the MP3s into and play them. I'm not going to go too much into it, but the good news is it is in the manual. That is listed in the manual. Same with pictures. I don't know why you would do this with a mini arcade, but they left the feature in there. There's a few pictures to go through. It's a nice Christmas one. I like that one. All right, going back some more. This is the folder browser. If you install things onto your SD card, this is where you go up to the previous directory, and here you have the option to go to the SD card. It does work fine. However, note that you do have to put everything in a directory called game. Not everything. Shouldn't say that. All games need to go in a directory called game. That's game. Don't call it anything else, all lowercase. I don't know why they do that, but it won't pick up anything that is not in that directory. I mean, anything as far as games goes. After that, it doesn't matter. You can break them up into directories as you like. Don't ask me. Weird. All right, here's the settings gear. A lot of action in here. Language settings. If you get this in Chinese, you can go to this gear, go to the first setting, and third language down is English. Just press A on it, and it will switch to English, and you'll be all set. That does happen sometimes. Happened to me in my last review. Not with this one, though. All right, background settings. You see this nice background I've got? There is a selection of backgrounds here that you can choose from. All of them look, I don't know, vaguely Windowsy. They should put some little arcade ones in here. I was going to go look at the directories on my Linux box and see if I could find out where they were being stored and maybe add some. I don't know if you need... No, I don't... You probably could do it with a Linux box. I'll check. Anyway, font color. I'm going to be doing a hacking video on this later, and I'll maybe cover that in there. RGB sliders, it's kind of a pain in the butt. There's no reason why I would ever change the font color. So I'm going to go back. Sound settings. Oh, by default, I think it puts it on sound 3, which is just obnoxious as heck. So, sound 1 is the least offensive for me. Let me know if you have a different opinion. Backlight time. How long does the backlight stay on if you're not playing? Backlight settings. You can turn up and down the brightness. I leave it on 4. Why not? Restore the default. System info, we're not going to bother going to that. You might need this in the future if you're hacking it to know what the model number is. Right now, so far as I know, there's only one version rolling around out there. So you should be able to hack it pretty easily. Again, I will be doing a hack on this, a hacking guide. There's been a couple people who made really good ones, though. So I don't know. I'll do it anyway just because I might cover some of the other weird stuff that I've done with this thing. TV out mode. PAL or NTSC, the minute you hit it, it will switch to TV out mode and turn the screen off. Oh, you can't see it, sorry. I don't have a long enough cable, but the screen is off right now. It'll turn the screen off when you do it. Don't worry, when you reboot, the screen will be right back on. All right, let's wander into the game menu. Hitting A, you have simulation games and TF games. TF games are obviously the ones that are on the TF card. Simulation games are, of course, all the ones that are emulated. I don't know why they didn't say emulation games or emulation. Doesn't matter. Arcade. Here is what this device does absolutely best. It does a pretty darn good job at this. There are a couple games here and there that don't sound quite right, or whatever other problems there are, maybe some slowdowns. Mighty Pang has the sound kind of messed up, I noticed. Sometimes I have found if you're having a problem with a game and you've been playing games on it recently, just reboot the thing and sometimes it'll play it a little bit better. All right, let's take a look. I'm just going to do Pang for fun because I haven't done this game in a while. Insert some coins, select and start. Have no idea what I'm selecting here. Choose stage. If you haven't played this game, it's pretty fun. It's old though. I think there might have been an Atari version of this. I can't remember though. Stage clear. All right, I'm going to hit select and start at the same time. Bring it back to the menu. There's game settings. You can do brightness and frame skipping if so needed. I've never set the frame skipping. I don't like frame skipping at all. You can change the buttons. The only exception is, for whatever reason, when I do settings changes on the SNES, it does not work. Not on the controller that's built into the device. Really weird. Instant archive. I can save the game right at this point and recover it later. Great feature. Glad it's simple. I know some of the early versions of this, it was like really a pain in the butt to do. But in this, it looks great. Takes a little snapshot of the screen where you were, and you can save a whole bunch of positions. And there's one of these for each of the games. Really like that. Reset, and of course, quit. Let's continue, play one more level, and then we'll go on to another game. Yeah. Get 'em. I think this came out on Android a while back, and I did a video on it. That was it. And up the ladder. Give me some more time. It's a little bit easier than the Android version, to be honest. All right, let's go on to the next game. All right, so we are playing River City Ransom on the Game Boy Advance. It's one of about 700 games that are on here for the Game Boy Advance. It's not perfect at running Game Boy Advance. I might give it about a 75%, but the selection here is like nothing I've ever seen on one of these devices before. It also has a lot of tactics games, and those tend to run really well, so you can sit here on your little mini arcade in the dark in your bedroom alone, I guess, playing a tactics game, and that is pretty darn cool. Let's go beat some people up. Let's beat you up. Come on, you. Next. Alright, now let's beat some people up. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Get my coins. Come on. Beat down. This game is absolutely great. Alright, let's go look at something else. Alright, so here is Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and as you can see, it runs pretty well. Many of the games run pretty well, but then again, many of the games don't run so hot. That said, there is about 500 games total for the SNES on here, so I'm sure you're going to find something you like. And to be honest, you know, it's no worse than something like, say, the RS-07, which it's very similar to. So if you liked playing on the RS-97, you're probably going to like it here, too. Boy, I like this game. It's good. And here we have Road Rash on the Sega Genesis. This was one of my favorite Sega Genesis games back in the day. You know, I hate to keep repeating the same thing, but Genesis emulation works pretty well, except when it doesn't. I found that the sound tends to mess up a little bit more on the Genesis than the other ones. That might just be because I'm more sensitive to Genesis sound now, because you run into problems with it so often. This seems to run a little bit slow to me, but then again, I've been playing that remake on the PC, and sometimes when you play like the old version of something that's been updated, you start noticing how it has dated. So it might just be me. What do you guys think? Does it look alright? Ooh. Don't hit a car. Don't hit a car. There we go. Oh man. Oh, flew off the road. I used to love when you'd hit something and you'd just go flying all over the place on this game. And then you'd be walking down the street and somebody'd run you over. That was great stuff. Road Rash is a great game. Alright, let's go on to the next one. And here's Silkworm on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Runs well enough, as do most Nintendo games. Again, they're not perfect. Sometimes there's a little artifact here and there. But they play well, and they are fun to play on here. So I'll give it some points for that. If you noticed, I've been shaking up the games a little bit today. I've been playing a lot of Famiclones lately. So I've got to start playing some different games. I'm just going crazy playing the same games all the time. I hadn't played Silkworm in years and figured This is a good time. Oh, he got away. Rats. And there we go. A little bit of NES for you. Alright, here's Rampage World Tour on the Game Boy Color. And, you know, I don't know why these devices don't seem to run the Game Boy Color as well as I think they ought to. There's always a lot of tearing, a lot of just weird slowdowns, and the animation feels really goofy. It might be because you're blowing it up to a higher resolution. It just might make the gameplay a little bit off. But I never really like playing Game Boy Color on these things, and this is no exception. There's about 150 games for the Game Boy Color. Again, they don't run awful. It just, I don't know. I just don't like playing Game Boy Color on these things. And here's R-Type 2 on the good old-fashioned Game Boy. It looks pretty good on here. You know, it has the same kind of complaint that I have about the Game Boy Color, where the games just don't feel quite right on it. And I don't know that it's the device. I think it might just be the fact that this is just a much bigger screen than you generally would play the game on. But anyway, it's just something worth noting. I love the way games for the Game Boy look on the built-in screen on this. It really does look pretty darn cool. And I'm glad that they didn't stretch the screen out so it looked horrible. So, you know, if this looks good to you, well, then I'm sure you'll like playing the Game Boy on this device, if that is what you would pick this up for. Alright, so we are going to go into the File menu for this, and go into the Transplant Game folder, and we are going to look in these little Chinese directories. Oops. Went too far down. Ignore the stuff that's going on behind the curtain. There's nothing to see there. Alright. In these directories is some games for the Dingu platform. And that is pretty darn cool because there's some neat stuff in here. Like Wolfenstein. And Hexen. And there's a couple other games that I don't like as much. Takes a little while to load. Don't worry about this black screen. Just wait. And there we go. We got Wolfenstein. Now, notice how on here this screen is all messed up, and I'll just zoom into it so it looks a little better for you. But on the screen of this device, it stretches out to the correct size. And there we go. You can play some Wolfenstein. Theoretically, you should be able to play Doom and probably a number of other games on here like Cave Story. Well, you definitely can if you're running the hacked firmware, but theoretically you should be able to run it on this as well. I was going to look into that, and that's why I have all those folders down below this one. But anyway, you know, there's a few neat little games that you can run on the platform that are ported over from the PC, and I think that's pretty cool. And by the way, they run just great on here. And it's nice to play them with a joystick or a gamepad. If the gamepad weren't so awful. Get him, get him. Alright, so let's go to the verdict. Plays everything. What is the verdict on the Retro Mini Arcade? Well, the sum is better than the total of its parts in this case. I really do like the device. The built-in controller I found quite competent. I enjoyed using it. It never missed a beat. For some people, the throw of this joystick is going to be a little bit too long for them, but I don't mind that kind of controller, so just keep that in mind. I hated this controller. I really dislike it to the point where I'm either going to hack it or find something else that can substitute for it. You might not have the problems I had with it, but I found it to be really difficult to use. You're going to have to really adjust to it to use it with any kind of accuracy. So yeah, I didn't care for those too much. Really like the screen. It's very clear. I don't think they went too far with the frame stretch. You may not agree. Keep it in mind because you cannot adjust that. Like the fact they included video out on it. Don't like the fact that they didn't include an AC adapter. Volume. It sounds pretty good. It is amazingly loud. I mean, just mind-bogglingly, headache-inducingly loud when you want it to be. So it's really great if you're in a crowded room. You can definitely hear it, but the sound quality isn't the best. There is an amazing selection of games on this. I don't think I've seen a better selection of games on one of these little handhelds. It doesn't run everything perfectly, and in fact, some things it runs downright bad, but all in all, about a 75%, and that makes it pretty good. Another note on this over the NeoGeo is the fact that you can put a battery in it. Now, my device and the one linked below does not have the battery included, but I will put down the battery model so you can pick one up if you'd like to, and it is fabulous running on battery. In fact, it's running on battery right this second. So that's a big advantage over the NeoGeo. All in all, it's getting a firm thumbs up for me because I just enjoy playing with it. I have been playing with hacking it. I've just been having a ball with it. So I gotta say, I really enjoy it. All right, thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more, and I will see you in a couple days. Bye.